Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 38. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And tonight's episode is going to be a lot of fun, I think. We mentioned last week we are talking about our favorite quotes. They can be quotes from a particular book that we like, quotes from a particular author we like, anything that we found that we think is interesting or funny or just really thought-provoking. That's what we're going to talk about this week. And we have some quotes that we're pulling in from the thread over at the Malarian Tavern, and we're just going to have a really good time with it.
Yep. If I can ever get my crap together and remember all the ones I want to talk about.
Oh, it's okay. And if... well, we'll just have to do one of these again, because as we keep reading new books, we're going to find new quotes, and, it's a never-ending cycle.
This is true. We may be organized as far as having a schedule for the show, but that doesn't mean I'm personally organized enough to remember what quotes I want to talk about.
Well, see, here's the thing. We say that we're organized because we have a list of topics, but that hasn't stopped me from changing the list of topics every week because I keep remembering something, or like this last one I remembered we're going on vacation in August, so we need to try and figure out what to do because I'll miss 2 weekends that time, so we'll need to figure out something, but I might end up having to miss one episode somewhere, but if that happens, it happens.
We can always double up 1 week, and then all you'll have to do is post it.
Yeah.
Or all I'll have to do is post it, or something.
We'll make something work, And we will let everybody know well ahead of time if we have to miss a week or something like that. We try to be good with that. We don't want anybody to think that we've forgotten about the podcast, and we've done really well so far. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about what we are currently reading.
I'm currently reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, because have we told them we're doing Potterpalooza?
I don't think we have, actually. I was thinking we probably need to tell people about that, don't we?
Yeah. Because we're doing Potterpalooza in July, it's kind of like Eddings Palooza, except it's all the Harry Potter stuff.
Yep.
I decided I might want to start reading those because it's been a really long time since I've read the first ones. Apparently, I read Deathly Hallows just randomly a couple of years ago. But I haven't read the first 4 or 5 in a really long time. So I started reading those, and I just finished reading Winds of Fate by Mercedes Lackey, because after we did Arrows of the Queen, I decided to continue on. So I've read quite a bit, actually, since the last time we recorded.
Well, good. Yeah.
I've read Arrows Fly, Arrows Fall, By the Sword, Winds of Fate, and 2 Harry Potter books since the last time we recorded.
That is pretty good.
That's what happens when your internet gets shut off.
Yeah. All of a sudden, reading books gets a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we are doing a big Harry Potter Palooza in July, so all of our episodes during July will be talking about the Harry Potter books. And there was a very deliberate choice. For one thing, July 2007 was the release of Deathly Hallows, when there were all the really huge Harry Potter parties and, celebrating the end of this massively epic book series that has just become the most popular thing ever. And It's also J.K. Rowling's birthday.
And Harry's birthday.
They have the same birthday. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So, we thought both of us wanted to do something with the Harry Potter books because we are very big fans. And July just seemed like the perfect time to do it. So.
Well, I've kind of been up to my eyeballs in Harry Potter because I've been playing Lego Harry Potter years 5 through 7, which I have played all the way through the story, and now I'm currently going back and trying to collect all the gold bricks and the Students in Peril and the House Crest. And I watched all the movies, and now I'm reading the book. So I'm sort of immersed in Harry Potter.
Yeah, you really are.
So, it started out with the game. I had years 1 through 4, and I finished it. And I didn't get 100% completion. The only thing I didn't do was all the bonus levels in the Basement of Gringotts, because those were just annoying and I didn't like them. But I got everything else. So I took it back to Holly because it's hers, and I got years 5 through 7, and it took me 2 days, I think, to play all the way through it to get everything done as far as the storyline, and then it's taken me longer to go back and get everything because some of the levels I have to do 2 or 3 times.
Uh-huh.
And I'll play, for a little while, I'll only do like 2 or 3 levels a day, so I'm not really in any hurry. But when I finish that, I'm going to play Lego Lord of the Rings. Which will probably start me wanting to read those books and watch those movies again.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Harry Potter Palooza, which, I had been thinking about rereading the books again anyway, and you came along on Facebook and you were like, you might want to hold off on that because we should probably do something Harry Potter related in July. And I'm like, that's a good idea.
I have good ideas every once in a while. Yeah, I've been wanting to reread the books for a while now, and it just seemed like the perfect excuse for it. I'm still in Sorcerer's Stone. I haven't gotten further than that. I probably need to speed up reading these, but they do go by pretty quick, especially the first ones, because they're a lot smaller than the last one.
Yeah, see, well, my idea is I'm going to, read the first 3 because that's the first ones we're going to talk about, but I'm going to try to get a little ahead because the other ones are so long, which, granted, I read Goblet of Fire in 1 day, so it's not like a week won't be enough time. Yeah. But if I have to read 2 of those in a week, it might be pushing it a bit. So right. I'm hoping to get a little bit ahead so that I won't be in such a hurry when we actually start talking about them.
Yeah. But there's so many things in the first couple of books that I've forgotten about. And I'm probably... It's been a while since I've watched any of the movies, so I'll probably, after I finish reading Sorcerer's Stone, I'll sit down and watch it and then do the same thing with the other books as I'm kind of going along. Because it's been a while.
You're going to end up doing like I've been doing on Facebook, Harry Potter movie franchise complaint number 352.
Yes. I saw that every time you posted that, I'm like, does she really have a list of these that are numbered? Because I wouldn't put it past her.
No, but I'm seriously considering doing so.
Yeah.
I'm seriously considering starting over with the first movie and a piece of paper and a pen and just making a list. I would not doubt that I actually hit 350.
That is something that we probably need to sit down and do for the show.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you saw the one that had all the comments on it. I believe you jumped in on that one.
Yeah.
One of my friends was like, we need to get together and have a marathon with a big whiteboard and
start writing them down.
Make your list. It's like, we need a very large dry erase board.
Yeah. Well, we can find something.
She's like, we're writing really tiny. I was like, even writing tiny, we're going to need a pretty big board if we're going to go through all 8 movies.
Yeah. But, let's see. I'm also sort of halfway reading Fire still by Kristen Kishore. I had put it down for a while, and I had only read the first couple of chapters, and then I started reading Harry Potter and really focusing on it, and then I kind of forgot what happened in those first couple chapters, so I started over.
Well, at least it was only a couple chapters.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten halfway through the book, which is good because it's not a short book necessarily, but I don't want to say it's not a good book because I'm sure that it is, and I like sort of the premise and the characters and some of the ideas that she has. I don't know if it's the book I'm in the mood to read right now.
I have that problem.
Do you know what I mean? It's one, and okay, I know you're making fun of me because my books are waiting in line, and this one is the next one in line. So I keep telling myself you should read this one, and because it's only fair. But at the same time, if it's going to stop me from reading altogether because I'm just not in the mood for this, then maybe it needs to go to the back of the line or the middle of the line. Yeah,
you can come back to it later.
Yeah.
I completely understand because it's like...
I knew you would. You always understand when I get weird like this.
Well,
I mean that in the best way possible.
Well, I haven't been... I stopped reading a lot of fantasy because I just wasn't in the mood. But, we've done several fantasy books for the podcast, high fantasy, like when we did Rhapsody and then we did Arrows of the Queen, and it's just sort of sucked me back in. So I'm bouncing back and forth between Harry Potter and Mercedes Lackey.
Right.
I was alternating. I'd read a Harry Potter and then I'd read a Mercedes Lackey and then I'd read a Harry Potter. But I read 2 Mercedes Lackey books before I started Chamber of Secrets because I was like, okay, if I start Chamber of Secrets, I'm going to have it done in 2 days, and then I've still got 2 weeks before we're going to even start recording about them.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to pace myself a little bit better. Read an extra Mercedes Lackey book there. So I'm probably going to end up reading all of the Mercedes Lackey stuff. Because when I read By the Sword, I was like you were with the Harry Potter books. There was a lot of stuff that happened that I had forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I have to keep reading. And because this is where they really start getting good, and you start getting that overarching plot that kind of connects all the books in the series.
Uh-huh.
Kind of comes in when you get into Winds of Fate.
Okay.
Because there's a character that is connected through most of the books. And it kind of reminds me of Voldemort and the Horcruxes, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because and these predated Harry Potter. These were written way before Harry Potter. It's not exactly the same thing. Instead of splitting the soul into several pieces and hiding them in objects, what they did was they created like a magic net in a not in not exactly a parallel universe, but kind of.
Uh-huh.
And when you die, your soul is flung into this magical net, and it stays there until one of your descendants tries to use magic. And then basically the soul goes to this descendant and possesses it. It's really weird. But yeah, it's an adept level mage that's doing this, and apparently he hates Valdemar and hates the Hawk brothers and hates everything, really.
Okay.
Yeah. So that stuff starts up in Winds of Fate, along with finding out what's going on with magic. Oh, that's where you find out what exactly the companions are.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But even though the heralds don't find out what they are till way later, everybody the heralds start meeting in this book are like, wow, they have these, and I probably shouldn't tell them what they are because they don't know. It's really funny. They're like, if they're not going to tell the heralds what they are, then it's none of my business.
Well, I guess we probably ought to start talking about some quotes.
Yes, I have lots.
I do too. I don't have a ton. Let's see, I started making a Word document. Let me tell you, if you're looking for quotes and you can't remember something, or you can't find something, or it was from a book or a particular author, Goodreads is your friend.
Yes.
They have a quotes area, and all you have to do is type in the name of the book or the name of the author, and it just puts out pages and pages of quotes from that book or that author. And that's where I got pretty much all of mine, because I could remember kind of what I wanted, but I couldn't remember the exact words. So
yeah,
that's where I got a good portion of mine, actually, because it was just easier than trying to flip through the books and find stuff. So,
well, a lot of mine, for those who don't know, I have a Tumblr account, and on said Tumblr account, I post 500 by 500 images with words on them. And these words are usually book quotes. So usually when I read something, I make note of these, or just immediately go to my computer and make these and post them. So I have a lot of mine collected there.
Okay. Well, can we put a link to that on the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. And there's TV shows there too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I post. So it's rockstargirl83.tumblr.com. Go on there. You can follow me. I haven't posted any lately. Actually, I think I posted a couple when I started watching Sherlock. That was the last thing I posted. But every now and then, like, I may not post anything for a while, but then, I'll come around and post like 100, and then I'll go away again. So don't give up.
Right.
I will eventually start posting stuff again.
Alrighty, so do you want to start, or do you want me to?
I want to start with Cassandra Clare.
You have a ton of stuff for Cassandra Clare, and that's why I didn't pick any of hers, because I knew you were going to have a ton of them.
Yeah, and I have to say one of the first ones that just cracked me up was when I first read Clockwork Angel. And we meet Will Herondale, and he is rescuing Tessa. And he looks at her and he says, "The handsome young fellow who's trying to rescue you from a hideous fate is never wrong. Not even if he says the sky's purple and made of hedgehogs."
Yeah.
And that cracked me up. I was like, I am officially in love with Will Herondale. Because, I love that snarky attitude like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like best about Cassandra Clare, is because she has such a funny sense of humor, even when she's dealing with things in her books that are extremely serious. I mean, life or death situations, and there's still this little sarcastic streak running through it the whole way.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that just makes it a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, I love them. And Will and Jace, we talked about this when we did the characters we fell in love with episode. Will and Jace are my kind of guy. You know, they're snarky. They have that attitude. And another one I really like, and this is a Jace quote. Well, Jace and Clary. Jace is training Clary in City of Fallen Angels. You know, she's finally figured out she's a shadow hunter, and she's going through training. And Jace tells her, in theory, when you're done with training, you should be able to kick a hole in a wall or knock out a moose with a single punch. And Clary replies, I would never punch a moose. They're endangered. I mean, I'm like, you're not concerned with the fact that you have the ability to do so. It's just, I would never punch a moose. They're endangered. And you can just see Clary being completely serious as she says this.
Yeah, and just kind of shutting Jace down for just a second.
Yeah, which is hilarious when she does that.
Well, let's see. I actually didn't put a whole lot of really funny ones on my list. I mean, a couple of them. I have a couple from David Eddings. I only picked a couple of them just because those books are endlessly quotable.
Yes, they really are. I have so many David Eddings quotes on my Tumblr that it's ridiculous.
But I have one from Pawn of Prophecy that it's towards the end of it where Garion's kind of realizing that this isn't just a simple little trip that they're on, that they're in. He's fallen in with important people, and even if he doesn't understand what's going on, he knows something's going on. And he and Silk are having this conversation, and Silk starts off by saying, we're living in momentous times, Garion. The events of 1,000 years and more have all focused on these very days. The world, I'm told, is like that. Centuries pass when nothing happens, and then in a few short years, events of such tremendous importance take place that the world is never the same again. I think if I had my choice, I'd prefer one of those quiet centuries, Garion said glumly. Oh, no, Silk said, his lips drawing back in a ferret-like grin. Now's the time to be alive, to see it all happen, to be part of it. That makes the blood race, and each breath is an adventure. I love that.
Yeah.
Because that just kind of sums up the whole series to me.
It really does.
You know? And then there's another one, it's in Queen of Sorcery, right after Sinedra joins their group, and they find out, well, they kind of knew who she was, but when she's exposed officially to the whole group, and she looks at Silk and she says, I thought you said you were the one in charge, and Silk replies, I lied, it's a vice I have. Which pretty much sums up the character of Silk.
Pretty much, yeah.
Actually, I think most of my Eddings stuff has to do with Silk, just because he's funny.
Well, you know, and there's one that every Eddings fan in the world will get, even with no context, and that's, does bouncing count?
Yes.
If you've read these books, you know exactly what we're talking about, and you know why that's funny.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, let's see here. I have a couple of them from the Harry Potter series, so since we're getting ready to do a big Harry Potter celebration, this one has been one of my favorite quotes ever since I read the first book way back when. And I don't even know what I like about it, except that it's such a funny sentence to say when talking about friendship. And it goes, but from that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking one another, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them.
Yeah.
It's so cute, but so strange at the same time, especially if you're not familiar with the books. I don't know why. I just really like that one.
I think my favorite one from Harry Potter is in Half-Blood Prince. Harry and Dumbledore are on their way to see Professor Slughorn at the very start of the book. And, you know, they've got this whole thing where you're supposed to ask people questions that only they would know the answer to make sure that they're not Death Eaters in disguise.
Right.
And Dumbledore's talking about, you know, Harry should have asked him what his favorite jam was. And he says, of course, if I were a Death Eater, I would have been sure to research my own jam preferences before impersonating myself. And I love that. And I really hate that sort of light-hearted side of Dumbledore kind of got left out in the movies.
It did. That was one of my complaints, and it was hard, I think, because they had two Dumbledores, and a lot of people get very, very, very particular about which one they like better. And to me, now, and I know for a fact that it's been rumored anyway, or said online somewhere, that Michael Gambon didn't read the books, didn't really, I don't want to say he didn't care, but he didn't look to see what Dumbledore was about before he just did his own thing. Or at least
He
that's
didn't really know the character.
right, except for what directors or, whatever told him. And to me, Dumbledore is supposed to twinkle.
Yes.
Michael Gambon doesn't really twinkle. Every once in a while they'd get a little tiny bit of a twinkle, but to me, Richard Harris was more twinkly.
Yeah, I liked Richard Harris's Dumbledore better, and by the end, by Deathly Hallows Part 2, I believe it was, Michael Gambon started getting that sort of humorous, lighthearted thing going,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and Gambon, he's hilarious. I saw him on Top Gear. I mean, he's naturally got that comedic side,
Right.
and I'm like, you should have used this because Dumbledore needed that. That was what made Dumbledore such a great character.
Right.
Multi-dimensional and whatever. And it just, like I said, it just always bothered me that got sort of pushed aside in the movies. And even Richard Harris, while, he was better at it than Michael Gambon was, they didn't have him do nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak.
No, they didn't.
It's the first, when the first speech he made, the first year Harry was there, I have a few words, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, and then he's like, that is all, and he sits down.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was awesome. That needed to be in there. But yeah, and the whole, I would have been sure to research my own jam preferences before impersonating myself. I mean, it's not that he didn't take Voldemort returning seriously, because he did, but he was able to stay in good spirits and not, run and hide because of it.
Right.
And that, like I said, it just always upset me that got left out of the movies. Harry Potter movie franchise complaint number 353.
Well, see, now one of my this is probably my favorite quote of the entire Harry Potter series. And I would have jumped up and down in the theater had I not been in a theater full of people who probably would have gotten mad at me. Because they did keep it pretty much verbatim in the movie. And it's from Deathly Hallows. And to me, this quote kind of, it was more than just a line that a character said, and I like to read way more into things than what is probably actually there. I know you would never guess that, but to me, this quote kind of symbolized not just the Harry Potter series, but kind of the reason why I enjoy reading so much just overall. And it's said by Dumbledore at the very end when Harry's sort of dead and meets Dumbledore in King's Cross. And Harry Potter he's getting ready to go back into life and fight Voldemort, because he had a choice. He could either go back and fight Voldemort, or he could, I guess, die and go to whatever's after. They never really specify, and I like that it's kind of open like that.
Yeah.
But he decides to go back because he's the hero, and that's what you do. And he turns to Dumbledore and he said, "Is this all real, or is it just happening in my head?" And Dumbledore looks at him, and this is one of Michael Gambon's twinkly moments, so that made me happy. And he said, "Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it's not real?"
Yes, I love that.
I love that. And I literally, my whole heart just like burst, and I saw that it was in the movie, and I heard that, and I just went, yay! They did something so perfectly right. I didn't get to do that as much in the movies as I would have liked to, but that one part was so perfect, and I was so happy. And I love that quote because everything that we do over reading and stuff, it's all inside our head. It's all in our imaginations and in everybody's imagination when they're reading it, and everybody reads things differently. But that doesn't mean, just because it's not quote unquote real, because it's inside your head, that doesn't mean that it's not important. And that's
Right.
kind of where I took that, is because, just because it's inside your head doesn't mean that it's not something that's valid, or it's not creating feelings and emotions that are real, or that, may change your life. And that way that it changes your life is something that's real. And I don't know. Like I said, I read way too much into these things, but I've always just loved that quote, and the fact that it made it to the movie was just awesome.
Yeah. And it's really funny because in the later books, Harry does get kind of a snarky mouth on him.
Well, he's under some pressure.
Yeah,
A
well,
little.
and that's a couple of more of my favorite quotes are when, Harry pulls out the snark. Hermione tells him, says, Harry, don't go picking a row with Malfoy. Don't forget, he's a prefect now. He could make life difficult for you. And Harry's like, wow, I wonder what it'd be like to have a difficult life.
Yeah.
And then Draco tells him, you're dead, Potter. And Harry says, funny, you'd think I'd have stopped walking around.
Yeah.
I love it when Harry does that, because, that's the kind of thing that I would say.
Yeah. Well, and Ron has a couple of those moments too, actually. I think of the three main characters, I think Ron kind of, I don't say laughs at things more, or doesn't take things seriously, because obviously he does, especially towards the end. But he tries to be more lighthearted sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is also from Deathly Hallows, when they're learning about what the Hallows are, and they find out they're listening to the story of the three brothers, and they find out that Death has an invisibility cloak, and that's, obviously Harry has an invisibility cloak, and that's a whole big plot point. But Harry's like, Death has an invisibility cloak? And Ron says, so he can sneak up on people. Sometimes he gets bored of running at them, flapping his arms and shrieking.
I love that.
Yeah. It's just, again, something that's so extremely serious, but it's almost like you have to laugh at it to keep from losing your mind, because otherwise you're going to panic, or you're going to cry, or whatever. So you have to laugh at it, because otherwise there's no other way to cope. And I think that's something that Ron was particularly good for, until he turned into a jerk and then left. But, he came back and it was all good.
Yeah. And here's another one that kind of shows Dumbledore's lighthearted, twinkly side, even when he's talking about something serious. This is in Deathly Hallows, he's talking to Snape, and he says, I ask this one great favor of you, Severus, because death is coming for me as surely as the Chudley Cannons will finish bottom of this year's league. I confess I should prefer a quick, painless exit to the protracted and messy affair it will be if, for instance, Greyback is involved, or dear Bellatrix, who likes to play with her food before she eats it. That's kind of a serious scene. Basically, he's asking Snape to kill him.
Right.
But, he throws in there that death is coming for me as surely as the Chudley Cannons will finish bottom of this year's league.
Yeah. But it's at the same time, it's kind of chilling the way he talks about the other Death Eaters. And, Greyback is a werewolf, so you can only imagine what kind of death that would be. And, Bellatrix is
completely cuckoo.
Is crazy as a loon. And, the way that he describes it, plays with her food before she eats it. That's so, chilling.
Yeah.
So it's funny at the same time as being, really scary the other way.
Yeah. I could go on for days about stuff from
There's so much stuff from Harry Potter, but we'll have the whole month to talk about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So
I'm going back to Cassandra Clare for a minute.
Let's move on to something else.
This is from Clockwork Prince, and it's Will and another shadow hunter named Jessamine. Will says, is this a game? We just blurt out whatever words comes next to mine? In that case, mine's genophobia. It means an unreasonable fear of knees. And Jessamine replies, what's the word for a reasonable fear of annoying idiots? Because apparently Will gets on her nerves. She doesn't want to be a shadow hunter.
I really need to read The Infernal Devices.
Yes.
I started them. I think I even read the first one, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
And this is the last one I'm going to do from Cassandra Clare, and it's just because it's Magnus and Simon. And it's from City of Lost Souls. I've got the mark of Cain, said Simon. That means nothing can kill me, right? You can kill yourself, Magnus said, somewhat unhelpfully. As far as I know, inanimate objects can accidentally kill you, so if you were planning on teaching yourself the lambada on a greased platform over a pit full of knives, I wouldn't. Simon says, there goes my Saturday.
I love Simon. I love Simon and I love
Magnus.
Magnus. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, that one cracked me up. So if you're planning on teaching yourself the lambada on a greased platform over a pit full of knives, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
That one was just so funny. I was like, that is quite unhelpful, but we'll go with it.
Yeah. Well, and then that's not uncommon for Magnus to say something like that either, so that's one of the things that makes those books so much fun.
Yeah.
I love those two characters in particular, but Magnus is pretty awesome. Okay, I want to move in a completely different direction. This is a book that I absolutely adore, and the Tavern Book Club is going to read it. I don't remember which month, but I think in the next maybe 3 or 4 months, I'm not sure. But it's Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I'm pretty sure you haven't read this yet.
No, I don't even have it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it.
Well, I can lend you my Kindle copy.
That works.
If you can't find it, but it's, oh my gosh, I think you in particular will like it, and here is why. Here is a quote that that kind of sums up a lot of that book. Being human totally sucks most of the time. Video games are the only thing that make life bearable.
Yeah.
Because the main gist of the book is it's very dystopian, very, the world is teetering on the verge of really not being there anymore. There's no natural resources. They've all been used up. There's been nuclear war and the fallout's been, it's just really bleak. And so most people stay plugged into this virtual reality kind of video game. But it's more than a video game. People go to school there. It's basically this whole online internet world. And the inventor of this dies and has basically hidden an Easter egg, which for anybody who doesn't do games, or they're in DVDs, they're everywhere, but it's something that's hidden inside a video game or sometimes on a DVD or something like that. Sometimes it's like a little secret in-joke or something like that. But the inventor of this, he doesn't have any family, no children, no anything. So he's leaving his entire fortune, which is pretty extensive, to the person who finds this Easter egg. And it's basically this big scavenger hunt through the biggest video game ever created. So a lot of the characters, the main character is a boy, I think he's 18, his name is Wade, and he is trying to find the different clues, and there's different keys you have to get, and it's all very complicated, and for some reason there's a lot of 80s trivia, because the guy who invented the Oasis, he grew up in the 80s, and so he's just mad about it, so he put all of these clues from the 80s. Some of it's hilarious. So that Wade is doing a lot of research to try and figure out different clues and what different things might mean. And so one of the things he says is, you'd be amazed how much research you can get done when you have no life whatsoever.
Well, that's true.
And then another one that he says is, I watched a lot of YouTube videos of cute, geeky girls playing 80s cover tunes on ukuleles. Technically, this wasn't part of my research, but I had a serious, cute, geeky girls playing ukuleles fetish that I can neither explain nor defend.
Well, okay. Seems like an interesting fetish to have.
Well, whatever makes him happy, and he needs stuff to make him happy. He has a difficult time of it, but it's a really good book, and it's one of those that's serious, but is also incredibly snarky.
See,
all the
I
way
like
through it.
those.
So
Snark is good.
Yeah, put a really snarky sense of humor along with video game culture and a whole bunch of 80s pop trivia.
I could get into this.
Bada bing, you have Ready Player One, and it's so good. It's really fun.
Well, my next one is Rachel Hawkins' Hex Hall series.
Oh,
I think you read.
I read the first one. That's another one I need to get back into reading the whole thing.
You really do, because some of the funniest parts are in the last two books.
I want to. It's just
But I have to share this one because I completely sympathize with what she's saying. The books are set in Georgia. In Savannah, actually, or near Savannah, I believe. And when Sophie first arrives at Hex Hall, this takes place. She says, "It's awesome," I murmured, sliding my sunglasses on top of my head. Thanks to the humidity, my hair felt like it had tripled in size. I could feel it trying to devour my sunglasses like some sort of carnivorous jungle plant. I always wondered what it would be like to live in someone's mouth. And I live in Alabama, and the humidity really is that bad. When it's, 95 degrees with 95% humidity, you feel like you're living in somebody's mouth. I mean, it cracked me up because it's funny. It's one of those, it's funny because it's true. And I sympathize with the hair problem because I have naturally curly hair, and if I don't flat iron it, it will triple in size. And then there's this one where she's talking to Archer, and I'm madly in love with Archer. He says, "She was my assignment." Sophie says, "From the eye?" Archer says, "No, from the Boy Scouts. That witch dating badge just kept eluding me." And Sophie says, "Well, you must have at least 3 total douchebag badges by now, so that has to count for something." And that's from the second book. That cracked me up. I was like, I like that.
Yeah, see, I loved the first book. It was just one of those that I couldn't immediately find the second book, and now it's been so long that I'd have to reread the first one again, and
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
They're great. I love them because Sophie reminds me a lot of myself. And I love it when she finally meets her dad, and because he's a lot like her. He's kind of snarky and insane. And this is one of my favorites from that her dad was involved in. It says, "Cal, Archer, Jenna, and I managed to achieve something truly impressive. The 4-way glance. It's really complicated," Jenna said at last. "We used a 16th century warlock trapped in a mirror to tell you where we were," Dad said dryly. "I think it's safe to say we're well versed in complicated by this point." There's a lot of funny bits and snarky bits in those books that I love. Those books make me happy. They make me laugh.
Well, so the next book I want to bring for quotes is one that I recently finished reading not that long ago, and I just fell in love with it. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Oh
Yes.
My gosh, that is such a good book.
I told you it was
I
very
know. Oh my gosh. I should have. And see, the thing is that when I was reading it, I had also kind of gotten on this Cirque du Soleil kick, which I like Cirque du Soleil. I think that some of the stuff they do just doesn't look possible. And I like some of the music that they use and just the colors and everything else. So I've been watching a lot of their videos on YouTube and a couple of other places. And so putting that together with like the Visions of the Night Circus, which although it's mostly in black and white, but just that kind of mysterious, ethereal kind of quality was still there. So I just was kind of on this whole like mystical circus high for weeks, and it was wonderful. But the Night Circus, the writing in there is so well done, and
Yes.
there are so many good quotes, and there's like I pulled a lot of these up on Goodreads, and I don't even remember exactly the context or when it was said in there because it could have been several different places. The first one's kind of funny, and there's these two twins. They go by nicknames Poppet, which is the girl, and Widget, which is the boy, and they're friends with this other boy who is not part of the circus, and there's a whole lot of mysteries about the circus and what it's there for and all this other stuff, which I'm not going to go into because, it's complicated. But Poppet says she's trying to tell this other boy a little bit more because they've gotten to be friends, and she said, "I tried to explain as much as I could. I think I made an analogy about cake." "Well, that must have worked," Widget said. "Who doesn't like a good cake analogy?" And then this one I also really liked is towards the end because there's this other boy is going to basically help the circus survive, kind of. And he says, but I'm not special, not in the way they are, meaning the other circus people, or it might have been specifically Poppet and Widget. He said, not the way they are, I'm not anyone important. I know, Celia said. You're not destined or chosen. I wish I could tell you that you were, if that would make it easier, but it's not true. You are in the right place at the right time, and you care enough to do what needs to be done. Sometimes that is enough. And I love that because it's so true, you know?
Yeah.
Because, in the real world, when there's things that have to be done, you can believe in destiny or fate or, whatever you believe in, but, most of the time it's because you're in the right place in the right time and you care about what needs to be done. And sometimes that's enough. I love that.
Yep.
It's like, that's so cool.
That book, I mean, I'm telling you, I have never read a book that was so good at evoking a mindset,
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess, and so good at describing the setting and making you feel completely immersed in this story without being overly wordy.
Yes. Yes, because the thing is right around the same time I was reading this, I was also reading A Discovery of Witches or Shadow of Night. I don't remember, but one of the Deborah Harkness novels. And you remember my main complaint with her is that she just got overly wordy and
Yeah.
overly verbose. And while it still had that same kind of atmospheric quality, there was so much there that it got on my nerves. But reading The Night Circus, it was like, no, this is how it's supposed to be done. This is how you can get completely swallowed in this atmosphere and not be pulled out of it because there's too much.
Right. It was brilliant. And it's one of those books that it doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
But
I mean,
that's
it
not
kind
the
of
point.
does. It kind of does because Marco and Celia's storyline kind of gets resolved in a way,
Yeah.
sort of.
But I mean, it kind of, it's, the end of it is left wide open,
Yeah,
basically. It doesn't really go anywhere, but it doesn't matter because it's not the destination that's the point.
right. No, I love that book, and as soon as I finished it, I wanted to read it again, but I couldn't do that because I don't have time. And then this quote from there, and I don't even remember where this is from or what the context is, but it's one of those quotes that it doesn't even have to be from this book because there's so many different places that I could think of, like, just in life where I could apply it to. But it says, I guess I don't even remember who says it. That's the sad part. But it says, I am tired of trying to hold things together that cannot be held, trying to control what cannot be controlled. I am tired of denying myself what I want for fear of breaking things I cannot fix. They will break no matter what we do.
Yeah.
How many times have I felt like that? And again,
It's
this is why I read. It's because this is where I find, like, people like, okay, see, okay, somebody must understand how I feel about things because they wrote a sentence like that like explains how I felt last Thursday.
yeah. I also have to bring one from the Chicagoland Vampires.
Oh, yes. Those are good and quotable too.
Yes. Unfortunately, most of those quotes, the good ones, are really long and you need the context to make them make sense. But this one's not that long. Mallory tried unsuccessfully to hide a snicker, which ended up sounding strangled and anemic, before turning back to her magazine. You have to call Darth Sullivan your liege? I grinned, only if I expect him to answer. That's from Some Girls Bite, from the first book, right after Merritt is turned into a vampire. And I love the play between Mallory and Merritt, because in those first books they remind me a lot of me and my best friend before Mallory goes crazy.
Yeah.
And my other favorite one I probably shouldn't share because somebody under the age of 13 might be listening, and there's a bad word in it.
Well, can you censor it?
it they're gonna know what the word is even if I censor it.
Oh, okay, then never mind.
And I have one last one of mine. Well, no, because there's a couple of Ranger's Apprentice ones I want to bring in too. But this one's not a funny one. This one is when I read the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes the first time. I don't remember which one of the stories it was in, but it struck me as being very true.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I think, at the end of one of the cases, and he was Watson and Sherlock are talking, and Sherlock tells him life is infinitely stranger than that which the mind of man could invent. Because Watson says something about, this is, there's no way that that's actually what happened. And it's true. You see these outrageous things, and you're like, you can't make that up.
Yeah.
And that's been one of my favorites ever since I read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
Well, see, most of the ones I have left on my list, they're all kind of serious. um, There's one of the ones that I put up here. This book is another one that's endlessly quotable, and that's The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. And I will say, if you don't have a copy of the book, you can rent the movie. It's in Redbox. I think it's streaming a couple different places, but they did a really good job with the movie too. I think I've mentioned that here before. But the book is there's so many good quotes, and it's just this teenage boy kind of trying to explain what's going on in his life and how he feels about it, which we've all been teenagers. Some of us may still be teenagers. Some of us may be teenagers inside our brains, even if the rest of us have aged. But just the way that he puts things, it just really resonated.
Yeah.
And so one of the quotes is, "So this is my life, and I want you to know that I am both happy and sad, and I'm still trying to figure out how that could be." And I just, because I feel that way sometimes. It's like, I'm happy, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's not.
Yeah.
And but you have to figure out how you're these two opposite things at the same time.
Yeah.
And this other one is, I think that if I ever have kids and they're upset, I won't tell them that people are starving in China or anything like that, because it wouldn't change the fact that they were upset. And even if somebody else has it much worse, that doesn't really change the fact that you have what you have. I really like that one too.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot about kind of realizing somebody, how to put it, I guess recognizing that someone has some issues that they're dealing with or has some problems that they need help with, and not just taking those problems and pushing them aside and pretending they're not there.
Yeah.
There's no sweeping under the rug. Or maybe it's been swept under the rug and they're making sure that doesn't happen anymore. It's a really good
Ooh.
book.
There's another one that I forgot about. I'm looking in the tavern thread now, and I'm going to share some of the ones other people have posted.
Oh, yes, do that.
When I read The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, which is the second in the Kingkiller Chronicles.
Okay.
There's this character that Kvothe encounters called the Cthea, I guess. It's the Cthaeh. We're going to go with that.
Okay.
But he looks at Kvothe and he says, "You're like a clear pool. I can see 10 feet through you, and you're barely 3 feet deep." I just really like that, because I know people like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I can see 10 feet through you, but you're not even 3 feet deep. Yeah. I know people like that. And I like these that Savannah shared. She shared several from the Dresden Files books by Jim Butcher, which I've read the first one, and I do intend to read the rest eventually. But this was from Something Borrowed, a short story in Side Jobs. It says, "I let out a battle cry. Sure, a lot of people might have mistaken it for a sudden yelp of unmanly fear, but trust me, it was a battle cry."
I remember seeing that one in the tavern. That made me laugh.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there. Here's another one from another short story. "My bill," I said, enunciating. "You dragged me into this mess. You can pay me same as any other client. Where do I send the invoice?" You're trying to bill the Lord God Almighty," the Archangel said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Something from the Night Side by Simon R. Green. This is another one that Savannah posted. She says it's a rather overwritten, pale imitation of the Dresden Files. And she posted this quote. She said it does have the occasional gem. "You can't talk to me like that." "Of course I can. I just did. Weren't you paying attention?" I love that.
I like this one. A Vector posted it. It was from The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. And It says, "You don't see yet, Jenry, why we perfected and practiced foretelling? No. to exhibit the perfect uselessness of knowing the answer to the wrong question.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I love... Oh, look, there's the ones I posted from the Stephanie Plum books. There's some pretty good ones in there, too. I like this one. I had a lot of unease over Ranger's definitions of broad horizons. I suspected his horizons were a teensy bit closer to hell than I wanted to travel. Lula. I love Lula. Lula tells Stephanie, don't be Miss Cranky Pants with me just 'cause you aren't getting any. Stephanie says, I could get plenty if I wanted. And Lula says, you know what your problem is? You got too many scruples. 1 or 2 scruples is okay, but you get too many of them and it clogs everything up. I tend to like the funny stuff.
Yeah. This is one that Moretta posted. It's from Word of Honor by Michael Pryor. And she says, this describes the main villain of the piece. With his penchant for plots, counterplots, false plots, and plots that look like plots but are underneath schemes masquerading as plots, small things like keywords could be hard to remember.
Yeah.
It's funny, I actually know some people like that.
Oh, here's one of my favorite Mercedes Lackey ones. When she started writing the Collegium Chronicles. This is the 2nd or 3rd book in the series. Intrigues. This is Mags talking about his companion. Dallin is his companion. There were times when Dallin's cheekiness didn't just border on impudence. It jumped right into the middle of impudence and splashed it all around. He got a very snarky companion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to go for the funny stuff. That's the stuff that usually jumps out at me. But then again, the stuff that I read usually has a lot of funny quotes in it.
Right.
But there's a lot. Like I said, on my Tumblr, we'll have to post the link.
Oh, don't worry, I will. Yeah, see, okay, probably should think about wrapping it up here in a little bit, but I want to share 2 quotes. Both are from one of my favorite authors of all time, and that's John Green. And one of them is very serious, and then the other is not actually from one of his books, but it is just something that he said, and that I really, really like, and I know that you will appreciate it as well. So the first one is the quote, wait, where'd it go? Hang on, I'm gonna pull my thing back up. Okay, it's from his book, Looking for Alaska. And this, oh my gosh, this book. This is one of the books, and several of his books have done this for me, but it's one of those books that you stay up really, 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 really late reading because you cannot put it down.
I know those.
Yeah, and part of it's just because he writes characters that you really, really connect with, or at least I do, and not because they're going on these big fabulous adventures, because he doesn't write fantasy. This book is about a teenage boy who goes to a boarding school. I don't remember, it might have been in Florida, I think. I can't remember exactly where it was now, and it's just about the people that he meets there, and just, it's kind of a coming of age story in a way, but one of the characters ends up in a car accident and dies. And I will say, nobody writes about death like John Green. He's very good at it, because he doesn't, it reminds me of when I've lost people, and it's just like, okay, this is exactly how you feel. He really captures that feeling, that confusion, that the whole 5 stages of grief, or whatever they are. And the main character was told that this person, didn't suffer because they died instantly.
Yeah.
And this was how the character was processing it. What is an instant death anyway? How long is an instant? Is it 1 second? 10? The pain of those seconds must have been awful. And there was no air and only raw panic. What the hell is instant? Nothing is instant. Instant rice takes 5 minutes. Instant pudding an hour. I doubt that an instant of blinding pain feels particularly instantaneous. And he does a lot of that. He does a lot of like really drawing out these things that people are saying to him. The other thing that I really love about this main character is one of the things that he does is he collects quotes. Ha, see what I did there? He collects quotes of famous people's last words. He's a little bit morbid, Miles is.
It would seem.
But this is one of the things that he says around the time when this person dies. As he says, Thomas Edison's last words were, "It's very beautiful over there. I don't know where there is, but I believe it's somewhere, and I hope it's beautiful." That's such a good. I need to reread all the John Green books too. Jeez Louise.
Before we wrap this up, I have to throw in at least one of the John Flanagan quotes.
Oh yes.
Those books, they're great. They're especially the later ones. I mean, the first one is one of those where you can tell it's kind of his first book, but he improves by leaps and bounds by the second and third book. And this is from The Lost Stories, which was kind of the last hurrah. It was a collection of short stories of stuff that had taken place over the course of the other 10 books. The door flew open suddenly, and Halt entered the cabin. "Hello, didn't hear you coming," Will said. Halt gave him a satisfied nod. "Good. Every now and then I try not to blunder around like a blind man in a pottery shop." And, you know, this is funny because Halt is a ranger and Will is his apprentice. And unseen silent movement is one of the things that they're supposed to be really good at. And Halt, once he takes on Will as an apprentice, he gets to where he starts trying to take Will by surprise. And he doesn't manage it, but, you know, Will just kind of keeps his nerve. "Hello, didn't hear you coming." And then there's one from Halt's Peril. This is one where Halt was in trouble and Will had to rescue him. Will says, "You're dropping the bow hand as you release," he called, although Halt certainly wasn't. His mentor looked around and saw him and replied pithily, "I believe your grandmother needs lessons in sucking eggs." Yeah, there's Halt and Will are the epitome of snarky, both of them, and it's hilarious, especially when you throw Horace into the mix. You really need to read the rest of those.
If I can get past the first couple, I might be able to, but they're low on my priority list. I have to be honest.
Those first couple are a little tough. I mean, I read the first one and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to read the rest of this because this first one, it's one of those that's kind of derivative.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is, but I kept on, and by about the third or fourth one, they start getting really, really good. Will starts growing up, and a lot of stuff starts happening, and you get, you know, funny stuff starting to happen. And I fell madly in love with Halt and Will. I mean, this is one of those series that by the end of it, by the time that I finished The Lost Stories, John Flanagan's other series, The Brother Band Chronicles, was out. The first book was out, and I had checked it out of the library the same time I checked out The Lost Stories. But it's like when I closed The Lost Stories, I couldn't start The Brother Band Chronicles because I felt like I was betraying Will and Halt by reading something else written by the same author. That's how much in love with them I was. I was like, gosh. I can't read The Brother Band Chronicles. What if I like those characters better than I like Will and Halt? I can't do that.
Oh gosh. Okay, see, you know what? This actually leads perfectly into the last quote that I am going to share for this evening. And it is also by John Green, but it's actually by him, not from one of his books. And it was probably John and his brother Hank are the Vlog Brothers on YouTube. And they have this amazing YouTube channel that started out with these two brothers kind of getting to know each other as adults and have just grown into this big community of nerds, basically. They call themselves the Nerd Fighters, and they're just really excited about different things and getting involved in all of these other different fandoms, and they also do a lot of things getting involved in different charities and other organizations too. So it's just an all-around really cool thing. But I love this quote, and it goes like this. Nerds like us are allowed to be unironically enthusiastic about stuff. Nerds are allowed to love stuff, like jump up and down in your chair, can't control yourself, love it. When people call people nerds, mostly what they're saying is, you like stuff, which is not a good insult at all.
This is true.
I just love that. It's like that is the definition. It's like we love stuff, and if people try and say that, you're a nerd or you're a geek or something, and they try and use that as some sort of derogatory term, it's like that's not really an insult. That just means that we're enthusiastic about the things that we like. Okay.
Yeah.
Wahoo.
Well, everybody is a nerd about something.
Yeah.
It may not be, I mean, it doesn't have to be video games or books or comic books or traditionally, those are geeky things. They're not really nerd things. You can be a nerd about guns or knives or anything.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand, the difference between a geek and a nerd.
Yeah, there is a difference. Yeah. Like you said, people sometimes use those two words interchangeably. But
Granted, I'm both, but
yeah, well, granted. I mean, I am too, so I can't really say anything.
geek, nerd, I'm both.
Yeah, that's all good.
I get really excited about things, and I like geeky stuff too. Like I'm an electronics nut, and I like video games and books and comic books, and so I'm both, But I'm okay with it. I don't mind.
Hang on just one second. Yeah, there's another quote that he says talking about being a nerd, and it says, saying, "I notice you're a nerd," is like saying, "Hey, I notice that you'd rather be intelligent than stupid, that you'd rather be thoughtful than be vapid, that you believe that there are things that matter more than the arrest record of Lindsay Lohan. Why is that? In fact, it seems to me that most contemporary insults are pretty lame. Even lame is kind of lame. Saying you're lame is like saying you walk with a limp. Yeah, whatever. So does 50 Cent, and he's done all right for himself."
That's pretty good.
I gotta say, I love John Green. I love Hank too, but like Hank's more the scientific environmentalist kind of nerd, and John's more the literary kind of nerd. So, you know. So, are there any more you want to add, or?
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more I could go into, but
seriously,
we'd be here all night.
That's true.
We should probably stop while there's a stopping point.
That's true. Okay. So, yes, embrace your inner nerd or your outer nerd. Hey, go for it.
My nerd is very outer.
Yeah, mine is too. I can't hide it.
I mean, I'm the person that I don't care if I'm in public. If I see something that excites me, I'm always like, oh! I don't care who hears me. I get a lot of weird looks when I go out in public. Hey, but it's okay.
That's perfectly fine. Alrighty. Well, in that case, next week is going to be kind of a very casual kind of show. Since it's the midway point through the year, we're going to be talking about our how we're doing on our book goals for 2013, and also kind of talk about some of our favorite books that we've read, some of our favorite characters, maybe some more favorite quotes. I don't know, but we'll see. But we're basically going to take a look at the year so far and see where we're at. And then after that, our Harry Potter Palooza begins. So
yay!
Everybody pick up your Harry Potter books and get reading, because the very first episode we are talking about books 1 through 3. So that's 3 books you got to get through in the next 2 weeks.
And I think Holly's going to do that episode with us.
Oh, yay! That'll be awesome.
I know she had knee surgery, so she doesn't go back to work until the 3rd week of July. So I know she should be available for the first 2 episodes anyway.
Okay.
And depending on when we record and when she has to work, she might be able to do the other 2.
Okay, cool. Well, that is something to look forward to. But anyway, if you have any feedback, or if you have anything that you'd like to add to our topic today, which was your favorite quotes, we would love to hear some of your favorite quotes. You can email us at bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. We are at Bib Podcast. There is a thread over at the Malorian Tavern that is specifically about your favorite quotes, so I'm going to add that to the show notes, so be sure to check that out. Or just check out the Malorian Tavern, the whole website. It's really a lot of fun, and we have a good time there. And that's at www.maltavern.com. Also, be sure to check out Jess's Tumblr. I'm going to put a link to that as well, and you can find some more fun quotes over there. And
Yep.
if you have any questions, comments, feedback, book recommendations, topic suggestions, anything like that, you can always leave us a comment over at our official website, which is www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com.
Yep.
And I think that's going to do it. So until next week, thanks for listening, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.